Today's wisdom reading is adapted from Karen Armstrong's book, The Spiral Staircase, and Glenn is going to help me. First, I have to set the context. English writer Karen Armstrong was raised Catholic and spent much of her childhood trying to find God and accept the doctrines of the Catholic Church. She even spent 5 years in a convent in this pursuit, but just couldn't manage it. But she had a breakthrough one day over lunch with a rabbi friend named Chaim Maccabee, and Glenn's going to be Maccabee and I'm going to be Armstrong. Okay.
Some pagans came to Rabbi Hillel and said they would convert to his faith if he could recite the whole of Jewish teaching while standing on one leg. So he raised one leg and said, "Don't do to others what you would not have done to you." That is the Torah. The rest is commentary.
How could Hillel say that the golden rule is the entire Torah? What about faith? What about believing in God?
Easy to see you were brought up Christian. Theology just isn't important in Judaism or in any other religion, really. There are no complicated creeds, no infallible pronouncements. Within reason, we can believe what we like.
I can't imagine a religion without belief. Without true belief, you can't be a member of the church. You can't be saved. Faith is the starting point, the sine qua non, the indispensable requirement. How can you be religious without a set of ideas about God and salvation and so on?
We have orthopraxy instead of orthodoxy. Right practice rather than right belief. You Christians make such a fuss about theology, but it's not important in the way you think. It's just poetry, really, ways of talking about the inexpressible.
Thank you, Glenn. So Armstrong has this conversation, but it doesn't quite sink in, and she spends the next few years continuing to wrestle with beliefs, thinking they matter, trying to establish whether they're true or they're not true. And finally, in a quiet moment, she comes back to this conversation, and this time she gets it. She says, Chaim Maccabee had told me that in most traditions, faith was not about belief, but about practice. Religion is not about accepting 20 impossible propositions before breakfast, but about doing things that change you. It is a moral aesthetic and ethical alchemy. If you behave in a certain way, you will be transformed. The myths and laws of religion are not true because they conform to some metaphysical, scientific, or historical reality, but because they are life-enhancing. They tell you how human nature functions, but you will not discover their truth unless you apply these myths and doctrines to your own life and put them into practice. The myths of the hero, for example, are not meant to give us historical information about Prometheus or Achilles, or Jesus or the Buddha, for that matter. Their purpose is to compel us to act in such a way that we bring out our own heroic potential.
2 decades and a few years ago, our previous minister, Reverend Mark Bellatini, returned to Starr King to lead a service and to greet his old friends. After the service, I was with a few people talking with Mark. We asked him, what was the difference now that he was the senior minister of a church with 650 members? And he said, recently he'd given a sermon and was chatting with members during the coffee hour when he heard a member of the church say to someone who was a visitor for the first time to the church, "Why don't you go away? We have enough members, so don't ever come back to our church." Well, Mark's first said that his first thought was to respond in a non-ministerial way to the person who was discouraging the visitor. But he managed to control himself and decided on another less violent response. It was clear to us that Mark wasn't concerned about losing a potential pledger, but he was seeing someone who had come to the church in search of something. And not only was he not being treated in a welcoming manner, he was being actively discouraged from becoming a church member, in fact, being on the church grounds at all. I'm here today as Keith Lewis, he, to talk briefly about how we can welcome anyone who comes to our church in a manner that's consistent with our UU values. In our recent General Assembly, Unitarian Universalists adopted a set of core values. They were depicted graphically by our very own Tanya Webster. And the illustration shows love surrounded by interdependence, equity, transformation, pluralism, generosity, and justice. And let's remind ourselves that values are individual or collective beliefs that motivate people to act in a way or another way. They serve as a guide for our behavior when decisions and choices have to be made. In essence, they're our North Star. At the center of the UU values is the core value that infuses all the other values, and that's love. I don't interpret this to be romantic love, though we know that's ever lurking, but the kind of love we call agape, from the Greek. And it's a love that's demonstrated when we listen to a struggling friend, when we go out of one's way to help a neighbor, when we focus on the similarities between and among people in order to find common ground, when we treat each other with kindness and compassion, when we're a good friend. This is a love of caring for and about others. Charles Vogel, a minister and a consultant who specializes in helping groups become communities, defines community as a group of individuals who share similar values and a mutual concern and support for one another's welfare. Vogel believes that in a community, we may not share all the values every member of the community has, but we share enough to feel this kinship. One of the most compelling reasons for newcomers to join a religious community is when it's evident, when they see that members are behaving in a manner consistent with the values they claim to have. So the question is, are we living the values we espouse? It's apparent that we care for each other. Do we enjoy being with each other at Starr King Church? Our authentic welcoming and our friendly behavior goes a long way to encourage visitors to return and to learn more about us. In fact, some studies have shown how we behave while we are after church is the most compelling reason for someone to return again. 12-step communities have a saying, you keep it by giving it away. I would suggest that Starr King can both survive and thrive by giving away our welcoming values as we live them. After all, we come to church partly to live out our values with our friends. I've met some of my closest friends here at Starr King. Your next friend might be here. Your next good friend may be the next visitor to walk through the door.
I want to go back to the wisdom reading for a moment. Those passages from the Spiral Staircase changed my life. Before I read that book, I thought that religion was about accepting 20 impossible propositions before breakfast, and I was not interested. When I learned that religion could instead be about values and practices that were transforming, that were life-enhancing, then I was interested, and that made it possible to consider joining a church. I believe these ideas are significant to us, our church, our faith as well, because we UUs recognize that the work that we're doing, building the beloved community, a community and a world where we treat each other with compassion and respect, is more important than what we think in our heads. Making it real is more important than what's under that for us. You've talked about why you come to church, this church. Now let's talk about inviting someone else to come with you. UUs are famously allergic to the idea of proselytizing, so let's explore that for a moment. The Oxford Languages Dictionary defines proselytizing as attempting to convert someone from one religion, belief, or opinion to another. A couple thoughts on that. First, if the basic belief, if you will, of Unitarian Universalism is that we're all better off if we treat each other with compassion and respect, when we talk with others about our UU faith, we're just stating our beliefs, this basic belief. We're not trying to convert anyone. What we are talking about is an invitation from the heart, from generosity. We have something good here, and there are other people who need it, who need us. Let's share it with them. Their presence will enrich us as well. There are a variety of reasons you might invite someone. They might be lonely. They might have lost a significant other or be going through a major transition. They might be parents looking for support. They might be spiritual seekers looking for support. They might be looking for connection through activities. They might be attracted to our justice work. There's no coercion here or even persuasion. All we're doing is opening the door and saying, "Come in. You are welcome here. See if you find a home here." There is one group of people who are especially close to my heart, and that's LGBTQ plus folk. If you know someone who is hurting from anti-gay or anti-transness, please invite them here. We are a church that will love them unconditionally, their whole beautiful selves. If they would like to talk with someone who is family, that is queer, first, we can arrange that. Talk with me. So we've talked a little about values, how they guide our behavior and decisions, and specifically how our UU values help each of us in our lives and in this community. To make it easier for you to talk with others about Starr King and what it means to be a UU, we have a surprise for you today, a special gift. The Membership and Growth Core Circle, which consists of Keith and me, plus Reverend Soli, Tanya, and Hope, and with special help from Patrick, has created a new visitor welcome packet, and we have one for everyone here. Couples, maybe you could take one for the two of you. Zoomies, I wanted to mail this to you ahead of this service, but it didn't happen, so you will get it this week. We'll mail them to our regular Zoomies. Anyone else who missed it this week can pick one up next time you come. We're handing these out for two reasons. One is so you can know what we're giving to visitors. We hope you like it. Please take a look. It's got a lot of cool things in it. And there might be things in it you didn't know. The other reason is the possibility that you might give it to someone else as part of an invitation to come to church. Here are a few things about our church you could look at to see if you think you'd like to pay us a visit. If you can think of more than one person you could give the packet to, take more than one. Now, if in spite of all this you're thinking, I still just can't imagine myself talking with anyone else about the church, that's okay. You can help when you're here. We can all help when we're here by welcoming newcomers warmly and helping them feel connected. We need everyone to do this. It might take a little bit of effort beyond the usual comfortable thing you do on Sunday mornings, going out of your way a little to get to know a new person. I think you'll find it worth it. And as Keith said, this might be your new best friend. We have a good thing here. Let's be generous with it. Thank you.